Hello, 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 hello. This is Willie with From Save to Sane. Glad to have you with us today for our newest rendition, our newest episode with From Save to Sane. Glad to have all of you, whether you are joining me live, and if you are, please type something in the chat box and let me know that you are here and that you can hear me, please. Those of you who will see this on a rebroadcast or look at it at a later time, I certainly thank you for that. Those of you who are joining me who are here on the Pacific Coast time, I certainly appreciate that. Mountain time, Central time, and of course Eastern time, where I think it is 7 o'clock on the East. Those of you know, for the last 7 or so months, I've been out west, so I am on Pacific time. So it is 4 o'clock here. But we're glad to have all of you to join us today, and just want to thank you. So thank you again to everyone who is a part of this broadcast, who continues to support us and follow us. Certainly appreciate that. And want to encourage many others to join us as well. Subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, thumbs down. If you disagree, that's fine as well. Leave me comments on the videos after they are posted on my channel. I will certainly try to respond to all of them. So today is a wonderful day. It's a beautiful day here in Nevada, just outside of Vegas. It is sunny. It is about 78 degrees, and I hope that the rest of you, wherever you're joining me from, I hope that your weather is well. You're doing. I hope that your weather is good, as well as the weather is here. As always start, let me say thank you to a couple of people while we wait for some other people to join us as well. As always, I want to say thank you to two people, two endearing individuals who are special to this program here. And without them, without those two people, this program would not be possible. The first is Taisha Essick. I know you're out there somewhere. Wishing you well. I hope all is well with you and the family. Those of you who are familiar with Taisha was instrumental in me getting started with this podcast. When she left religion, or was on her journey, she, much like I was when I started, was seeking people who looked like her that was on a journey as well. And she came across my channel and a couple of videos, and we have been fast friends since. But she has been instrumental and supportive of me getting this channel started, and some of the uh, backroom things that I needed to know about podcasting. She's helped me with that as well, and getting this channel at least to the point where it is now. So always, certainly thank you to Taisha. And those of you who know her, please follow her on some of her social media platforms. She does an outstanding job on all of her platforms. She talks about everything from God to guns. So if you are certainly interested, even if you just want to support her, please look up her podcast. I mean, her social media handles, and she has some podcasts as well. I know most of them can be found under Taisha Essick. And so, yeah, so please reach out and support her. The second person that I'd like to say thank you to, as always, is my wonderful wife, who is my number one fan, my best friend, who is also supportive behind the scenes, who do a lot of the technical stuff that needs to be done that I am not, that is not my what I'm not best suited for. So we'd like to thank her for all of that and being 100% supportive of what I do here. And so thank you to my wife, and certainly appreciate that. Um, with that being said, I just want to mention a couple of quick housekeeping things. Always, and as to Taisha and as my wife, for a matter of fact, has told me, make sure I promote my book. This is my first book in this space. Um, what is it? It is From Save to Sane: My Journey Away from Christianity and Why Christianity Has Been Detrimental to the African American Community. Willie O. Cartwright, you can see that there. You can get this book on Amazon. Look under Willie O. Cartwright. Um, or you can leave me a note, information, request a signed copy and I can reach out to you and get your address, and you can Cash App me or Venmo 19.99, and we will mail you a signed copy of the book. As I mentioned, that is the first book in this space. It is actually my third or fourth book that I've written and published, but it is the first book in this space, being about religion. I mention that because I'm working on my second book in this space, which is a collection of all of my graduate school writings that relate to the topic. I wanted to bring all those together and conclude that book with my graduate thesis. So prior to my graduate thesis would be quote unquote the last chapter in that book. But prior to that, preceding chapters, there would be other writings from me that I did in graduate school. And so I'll put those together to make that into a book. It should be extremely interesting, a lot of good information. So yeah, so that book will be coming out hopefully before the end of this year. Working on it as we speak. A couple of other things. I am doing a class through the I think it's the American Humanist Association. We are talking and negotiating that now. It is a class that I'm going to teach a class with 3 sessions. We think it's going to be on a Wednesday night. Good evening, Texas Goddess. Let me know if hopefully you can hear me well. Um, Thank you for joining us. That class is going to be on a Wednesday night, I think early April. That's what we're shooting for now. And the class is going to be entitled Christian Nationalism and Evangelicalism, the connection and how combined they are causing a fall to our democracy, and how secularism may be a viable alternative or a viable answer. And so we're still working on the title, but that's essentially what the class is going to be. It's going to be 3 sessions. We're going to talk about the history of Christian nationalism, evangelicalism, how it is affecting our democracy, and what those of us in the secular community, can do about that. Right now, I think the class is going to be $25 per session, a total of $75. I encourage all of you, if you're interested, please join that class. I will have more information as we get closer. I will provide a link and a way for you to become part of that class and pay for that class to hear. But yeah, so that's one of the things I have coming up, with a couple other things coming up, but that's the one that's is further along. And there are some other speaking engagements that I am currently working on, that as those come to light, I will let you know as well. Hello, Lish, how you doing? Um, yeah, it's been a while, but I am glad that you are here. Thank you so much for being here. Please let me know if you guys can hear me clearly. Henry Mars, what's going on? I think it's been a minute as well. Glad to have you as well. So good. We are good. We are good. I'm glad to have all of you. And so I think, is that all of the housekeeping things out the way? Oh yeah, I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I did I spoke. Thanks, Lish. Thank you so much. I had done a presentation for. I'm sorry, I'm reading Texas God is coming. She said, "Did you mention your talks that you recently did?" Yeah, I am. That's what I'm about to do. Thank you so much, Texas God is. Yes, I recently did a talk for Sunday Assembly. It is a secular organization that meets on Sundays here just outside of Vegas. I did a presentation. I did a presentation for them on secularism, and the viability of a society without God or without religion. And we use the examples of Denmark and Sweden as part of that presentation. We are breaking that presentation down, and we're going to put the entire presentation on this platform on my YouTube page. But it is about an hour and a half long on the presentation. And so we're also going to break it down in segments that we're going to post on my TikTok channel, which I need to get to I think it's WC O'Neill on TikTok, but we'll get all that information for you when it's there, and then it will also be in in um, in sections. It would also be on the YouTube page as well, so you can do that, so you can see that one. It was a pretty good presentation. A bunch of information, a lot of Q&A as well. So yeah, so we did that. The presentation that I did about a month ago in South Carolina. um, Thank you. Hit the like button. Thank you, Henry. The presentation that I did about a month ago in South Carolina, that was not recorded. That was me presenting information about my graduate thesis. Which, if you are interested in reading a graduate thesis, it is available on Georgia State University library.com. You can find it under Willie Cartwright, and it is the title is the proliferation of African American nuns and the effects of secularism on our society. It has been downloaded and cited a lot more than I ever thought that it would, not just here in the States, but all across the world. So that is wonderful. So that's what's going on right now. So again, as Henry said, hit the like button. Who we have here? Saran Lada. Peace. Thank you. Hopefully, I'm not butchering your name, but certainly glad to have you, all of you here. And before we get into our topic today, I just want to also reiterate. I want to encourage all of you to leave comments, to make comments, and we can discuss those comments as we go along with this talk today. Let's see. Please put that in the chat. Yes, I will. I will. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will. Texas Goddess. Actually, I probably need to do all this stuff before I come on. That way I don't have to be distracted. But yeah, I'll do that. Thank you. I will. Absolutely. Certainly. So what's today's topic? Let's get into it. Black Christians are detrimental to social, economic, and intellectual progress. I'm gonna do my Umar, my Dr. Umar, repeated 3 times. Black Christians are detrimental to social, economic, and intellectual progress. Black Christians are detrimental to social, economic, and intellectual progress. What I normally do is tell you guys how I came up with these topics. And this is one of those topics that's sort of always there. It's sort of a catch-all. It can be used and applied, at any point, almost about anything. But I think it's also more important to explain why we're doing this topic, because what I always want to do with this platform and this channel is make sure that it is substantive, that the information is substantive, that the information is relevant and on the point, and information that you can use. I don't want to be on here just talking about something for the sake of talking about it. I want it to be practical. I want it to make sense for us, and I want us to be able to take it and apply it as we're out in our daily life. And so this topic is one of those topics that we can apply that is certainly relevant and certainly substantive. And so what do I mean by that? Well, there are many ways in which Black Christianity or Black Christians are detrimental to our collective progress. Um, and so I'm going to talk about some of those ways today. But let me start with a bit of a disclaimer for my people out there who are going to listen later or who may be listening now and will leave me comments. Um, I am fully aware that Black Christians and Christianity, African American Christianity, and the way that it has been practiced in the past has been at times very, very beneficial to our collective community. And I think even today, there are some personal benefits that individuals glean from the Christian practice or the practice of Christianity. So again, I am not at all saying that Christianity or the way that Black people, African Americans practice Christianity is completely detrimental or has always been detrimental. What I'm saying today is that the Black Christianity and the way that African Americans practice Christianity has now become a stumbling block. It's become a huge obstacle to our progress. And I'll get into that in just a minute as to why I say that. Let me tell you, I'm going to give you a quote, and I'm not going to quote it verbatim. I'm just going to sort of paraphrase it. Many years ago, my wife and I were attending a conference, and it was about government contracting. And this is when we had our business, and we wanted to sort of get into government contracting. The gentleman that was running the class was a gentleman from Laos over in Asia. right? And toward the end of class one day, he told a story. It was sort of a metaphor, and he said that oftentimes when he made an analogy of crossing a river and needing a canoe. So when you cross the river, clearly you need a canoe or some type of boat. In this case, it was a canoe. And so you use the canoe. The canoe gets you from one side of the river to the other side of the river. um, and then there's no more water. But if you continue to carry the canoe on land, then it becomes a hindrance. It becomes an obstacle to your progress. And I liken that to Christianity for African Americans. There was a time where Christianity, our practice, our collective practice of Christianity, served us well, at least from the standpoint of hope, at least from the standpoint of giving us something to sort of rely on and hope for, which in return kept us going emotionally and mentally when maybe our physical bodies wore down from what we were enduring as enslaved people from Africa and our ancestors, and as we progressed into into segregation and Jim Crow. But then there comes a time where that Christianity is no longer needed. I'm not saying that we're not still facing some of the same issues that we faced before, but now we need a different strategy in order to meet those issues and beat those issues. And in my opinion, Christianity is not the best tool. At least it is not as effective as it has been in the past. And to a very large extent, it has become a hindrance to our progress. And so let's get into what I mean by that. So uh, in the recent elections, and then and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I tried to stay away as much as I can from politics, but we're in a time period where the two are connected. The two being politics and religion, and so I'm going to start with this, and hopefully we won't have to go back to this as well. As much as much as I'm into politics, I don't like discussing it as much on this channel. However, we know that religion, evangelicalism, has played and is playing a very large role in what we see today in our current politics. We know that 80% of evangelicals supported the current president, and we know that there were many African Americans who, relatively many, who supported this current president, regardless of where you lean. My issue with that is that as I've spoken to some of these African Americans, their support for him really hinged on the idea that they thought that he and his party represented some kind of religious higher morality than say those on the left. And so those individuals became single issue voters. And I don't think that's healthy, regardless of what side you're voting on. And so those people became single issue voters. Also, some of those same individuals, because of their religion, um, they have a reluctance and an aversion to the homosexual lifestyle. And again, I am very much heterosexual, but I am pro humanity, meaning that I believe that all individuals, all human beings, should have the same rights as others, regardless of who you choose to love. But I have a real issue with individuals who are basing their mistreatment of others on the fact that they believe or interpret their sacred scriptures, in this case, the Bible, to mean to be against a particular lifestyle. I believe that individuals, grown adult consenting individuals, are free to do whatever it is that they want to do, providing that they're not harming anyone else. And I stand by that. Again, I am not part of the LGBT community. I am very much heterosexual, but I am also very much an humanitarian. And so again, many in our community, because of religion, they will ostracize others in the communities who are a part of the LGBT community. And I think that in itself is a hindrance. I know many people in that community, and they are wonderful, bright, intelligent, loving human beings. And so when I say a hindrance, the religious community, African American religious community, would tend to ostracize those individuals because of their lifestyle choices, and I think that that is a problem. Uh, there are also other issues. I think that there is a archaic mindset, a regressive mindset in many older so-called Christians who are, how should I put this? Who tend to criticize those in the younger generation simply because they may act or do things differently. Every generation prior to your generation said something or thought negatively about your generation or parts of your generation. My mother, her generation, baby boomers, thought that Generation X, that we were crazy, that, we were listening to gangster rap. And when rap first started, they couldn't understand it, couldn't wrap their hands around it, all of that. And part of that was that they thought that that was somehow unchurched or antichrist or not of the Bible or not of the church. And the way the church was established and set up, it in many cases it was, but that didn't make it a bad thing, right? And so we tend to judge, and I always said this: African Americans, more so than any other demographic in this country, especially, see things through the prism of religion. Every other demographic, I believe, views things through the prism of self-preservation. But us, we tend to view everything through the prism of religion. And so you start to place a wedge between individuals, old school individuals who their faith is at the very top, is the very top priority in their life, with those younger individuals who are more concerned with what's going on in their life day to day. They are less critical and less judgmental of someone who has a quote unquote alternative lifestyle, understanding that an alternative lifestyle does not make them a bad person. Just like we know many Christians who are both good and bad people, we also know many non believers who are both good and bad people. And so that is one of the issues with religion and one of the issues in our community that holds us back. So are there comments and statements about that? Agree, disagree, other comments that anyone would like to add to that? Anyone? And so one of the things that we also see is that oftentimes when we read on the news, hear on the news about evangelicals being so devout and following, certain ideologies because of their religion, understand that there are plenty black evangelicals, and they too are part of this, and they're following what they believe to be morally right through their Bible, although their holy scriptures, again in this case the Bible, is one of the most immoral books ever written. And their God, God of the Bible, and Allah, if you are a Muslim, is also one of the, if not the most immoral character that we've ever come across. And if you don't believe me, I'm just not. This is not a subjective statement. This is backed up by their very own scriptures. Read the Old Testament. Read parts of the Quran. It is in there. This is a vengeful, hateful God who wants to punish. Why else would this God create a hell? Why would this God create us supposedly in his own image, knowing everything, so being all knowing, knowing that what would happen in the future, that we would be somehow in his mind flawed, and because of that, of being flawed, he would also create a hell for those of us who are flawed but don't fall at his feet, for us to spend eternity in. And then why would he require us to fall at his feet without presenting enough evidence to convince all of us? This so-called all-powerful, all-knowing God knows exactly what it would take to convince me to be a believer, but yet he, she, it refuses to present that information to me. And so yeah, so that's just a whole nother. I kind of went off on on a tangent there, but that's sort of where we are on that. I talked about single issue voters, which I think is a problem. We talked a little bit about the cultural wars, and so at the end of the day, what this is really about, um, and this is a hill that I would die on. I tell people all the time, what we're seeing in this country today is undergirded by the cultural war. On the surface, it is the price of eggs. It is the price of gas. It is fixing the deficit. But those are really not the reasons. What we see in this country going on right now is a cultural war, a cultural war that has its basis in religion. It is one side that is saying that we want to go back to a time when our the way we practice religion was the land of the law, was the way everybody was supposed to practice. We want to go back to a time where the man was the head of everything, and to project that out, the white heterosexual male, and everybody else kind of fell in line underneath that. And this was believed to be the way that, in their opinion, the way God intended it to be. And so women had their place, um, and then minorities had their place, but at the very top, just underneath God, was the white heterosexual male. And so this is what they're wanting to go back to. So this is really about that society. I mean, it's really about that society that we had many years ago. And African Americans, because of our proclivity to religion and Christianity, many of us, even if we don't openly support the ideology, there's many of us who are apathetic to it because we somehow believe that, okay, is it really that bad if we go back to those times, or if we really place an emphasis on religion? If we want to bring back, if we want to put Bibles in all of the schools, if we want to have the Ten Commandments plastered all over schools, is that really such a bad thing? If we want to do open prayer in the schools, is that really such a bad thing? And my answer to that is yes. All of those things are a really horrible idea, a really horrible thing, and it's not what this country was necessarily built on. And so yeah, so a couple of comments here. Texas God is the same people who judge those who listen to rap or grown and sexy music, watch rated R movies where people get unalived and raped, etc. Um, so yeah, thank you, Texas. Absolutely. You are more than welcome to say killed or raped on this program. I mean, on this podcast, you can type it. I know we're so used to social media, certain words that we can't say or type because it'll be, we'll get kicked off the platform or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and I always talk about this, how the um, the Bible Belt, the South, is number one in a number of dubious categories, like number one in porn, for watching porn, number one strip clubs, number one for sex trafficking, number one for divorce. All of those dubious categories that they put a facade up that they're really against. Uh, they're really number one. And so what happens is that when you stop a person from doing something, it makes them want to do it more. And so that's what we see with that. It's funny because recently I read a stat, and they had a listing of the top five so-called sinful cities in this country. And clearly, I live in what would be number one now. I do, which is just outside of Vegas. But that's what Vegas built this reputation on. It's just the strip and everything they go on. Understand that. But surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, I think number two was Atlanta. Atlanta was in the top three. It was either two or three. And Houston was also in the top four or five. And I think the other two were not states, were not cities out west. They were more cities in the south or the northeast or I mean, or the Midwest. I have to put that list up again. But I certainly remember Atlanta and Houston being in the top four because I've lived in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta for 28 years, so that struck a chord with me. And then Houston being similar to Atlanta, but still it's in Texas. Texas is a very red state, a very Christian state. So yeah, so we so yeah, so it's funny. So that comes to mind when we talk about that. Um, let's see. Henry said the good hiddenness is problem. The God hiddenness problem. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me say it right. I can't read or talk today. Henry, sorry about that. The God hiddenness problem. A God that refuses to prove or show himself. Absolutely, absolutely. And when you ask I've asked friends of mine who are devout, and we've had these discussions, dialogues, and debates, and I've asked that same question. At one point, they were asking me, "Well, what has to happen in order for you to believe?" So the first thing I said, I really don't know, but your God, all knowing, all powerful, would know what it would take for me to believe in Him, she, or it. And then secondly, so I remember one conversation I got into. We talked about miracles. I said, "Why doesn't your God perform the same type of miracles that He performed in the Old Testament? Is it because now we have recording devices that we can record and go back and research and study to make sure that these are not the same, that these are actually miracles? Or is it that maybe your God just doesn't exist?" And she was like, "Well, there he still is performing miracles." I said, "No, he's not." I said, "When did I say you saw your God walk on water, or turn water to wine, or feed 5,000 with three fish and two loaves of bread, or raise people from the dead, or or make people hear again or see again?" I haven't seen it, not not in my lifetime. So yeah, so it's one of those things where he's hidden. And then why hasn't he revealed himself? I have a really good friend from college who is devout, and she's actually a scientist, and she swears up and down that God wants me to speak for Him. He wants me to do this. So anytime we get into a discussion, she's like, "God is really calling you. He really wants you to speak for Him. He wants you to give up this whole non-belief thing that you're doing." Wants to, and I say, "Well, why don't He speak to me? Why don't He tell me the same thing that He's telling you?" And she says, "Well, you all of this, and nothing comes out of it." So again, so Henry, you are absolutely right. The hiddenness of God. Why don't He reveal Himself? Wouldn't that make it so much easier for all of us? And then so you get the whole free will thing, which that's a whole nother thing, and we need to have a whole podcast on free will. But God revealing Himself, that in itself is not would not violate my free will as far as believing Him. What it will do is provide the necessary evidence and information that I need to make a better decision. And so, right now, for many of us who are non-believers, we base our decisions whether or not to believe, not based whether or not to believe in any God or deity based on the evidence, or in this case, the lack of evidence. Uh, so that's why I am a non-believer, because I have not seen enough evidence to convince me that a God or a deity exists. And so another comment from Henry. Thank you, Henry. Henry says exactly, they want the white Christian males in control of all important decisions of the society and the world. And that's exactly my reading of what's going on today. And so, Henry, that is absolutely right. And how that relates to what we're talking about today is that, again, you would get a relatively small number, but a number large enough of African Americans who support this ideology and this agenda, because again, they're viewing life through the prisms of religion. And then you also have another segment, what I would say is a much larger segment, who are apathetic to this. They're not openly for it, but they're thinking to themselves, could this really be a bad thing? Uh, they believe that religion makes us better, makes the community better, makes our society better. And they're looking at it from several different angles. If they're, but they're judging it based on their own biases. Better to me is there are some things that our young people do that is simply, in my opinion, young people being young people. Again, I talk about this all the time. My wife is quick to remind me if I get on my soapbox and I start complaining about what young people do. She is quick to remind me about maybe the things that I did when I was their age, and all of us, especially in this generation, Generation X. And so when I think about that, I say, yeah, there were a lot of things that we did that didn't necessarily make us bad people, right? We just made some bad decisions or did some bad things. We were also extremely religious and still part of the church. Many of us, whatever we did on a Friday night or a Saturday night, we made sure we got our butts up and went to church on a Sunday morning. So being overly religious or overly devout did nothing to stop us from doing the things that many people do in their 20s. And to go back even further, I remember before my mother passed, having this really uncomfortable conversation with her. It sort of started off as a joke and me sort of teasing her, joking her because she was, older and not moving really well. And, you had to understand the relationship between my mother and I. It was a very, very open relationship, even as a young, a young boy, growing into a man. We always had this really open relationship. And so this was a conversation that I had with my mother. My wife was sitting there, and so my mother, through this conversation, alluded to a lot of things that she did that, as a child, even as a grown child, I didn't want to know. So she alluded to many of these things that she did as a young person, even when I was a infant, and she had me when she was 19, I think. So in her early mid 20s, late 20s, she talked about some things that she did. And that just goes to show you. And those of you who are familiar with some of these older celebrities from the baby boomer age, they did a lot of things that would even shame some of our young people would shame our young people today. And I said that to say that again, most of these people, if not all of these people, were very devout, very religious. So it's not, being in church and going in church and being a Christian has not stopped any of those actions. And then finally, what I'll add to that, again, which I talk about a lot when I speak on this subject, is when the country as a whole, the collective of this country, when we were our most devout, when we had prayer in schools, when we had Bibles in schools, when we had open prayer, when everybody went to church on Sundays, when everybody proclaimed their allegiance to God and was believers, it was some of the worst time in the history of this country. Remember, through those time periods, we still had segregation, we still had lynchings, we still had Jim Crow, we still had African Americans and other minorities being treated badly. We had women that had absolutely no rights whatsoever. Clearly, it was those in the LGBT community had no rights whatsoever, so forth and so on. So again, uh, we as a community, as a collective community, need to get beyond this thing, thinking that just because we are a religious society or a more religious society, that somehow we're better, and that if become a more secular society, somehow we would be worse. All of us, what we've all seen, if you're my age, what you have experienced, at least many of us, is that you do certain things in your 20s that hopefully you don't do in your 30s, that certainly you don't do in your 40s, and absolutely you don't do in your 50s. That's called evolution of the human being. That's called progression. That's called maturity. And it happens in every community, every gender, regardless. And so, yeah. Another comment, LMA. Thank you. Glad to have you. What's going on? Glad to have you. I no longer use the term Stockholm syndrome. I just said Black Christian syndrome. I like that. Texas scholars like that too. I like that. You're right. Oh man, that is so loaded, LMA. That is so loaded. It is. We can do a whole show on that. Christine, thank you for joining us. Hope you are doing well. Glad to have you too. But let me go back to LMA's statement. That is such a loaded statement. It is. Oh, it's so much that we could do with that. Um, so yeah, we are so blinded, we collectively as a community. And I always say we, because I'm still part of the community. I'm just not part of the religious community, but I'm still part of the Black community, right? So I always say we are so blinded by this thing called religion and Christianity. I cannot tell you how many times a Black person have told me that they are Christian first and blacks second. The number of African Americans who really don't know the history of Christianity and would tell you that Christianity is the African religion, and that the Bible and the Israelites, they're talking about us and all of that, and these people are unknowledge, they're ignorant to the history of the Bible, and things in the Bible. Let's just be clear, and I'll make just one quick point about all this because there's so many points to talk about. But let me just, well, I'll make 2 points. First of all, making Jesus black does not change the fact that a lot of this is largely mythology. That's number one. Number two, there is very little to no evidence that the current African Americans here in this country are descendants of any Hebrew Israelites or any Israelites in Northeast Africa. And finally, there is absolutely no evidence. As a matter of fact, there's evidence to the contrary that Egypt ever enslaved Israelites. So there is absolutely no evidence that Israelites were ever enslaved by Egyptians. As a matter of fact, there is evidence to the contrary. There is evidence that says that there was never a time in the history of Egypt and Kemet before Egypt, um, uh, that they enslaved Israelites, which means that the whole Exodus story is just that. It is a mythology, it is a story that is not based on facts. And by saying that, that means that the Exodus story, the whole 12 tribes of Judah, all of that falls upon the Exodus story, and it is not valid. There is no evidence to that, meaning that, again, we are not descendants of those people, at least in that situation, because it never happened. Um, and you can do the research. You can challenge me on that. We can have a whole day discussion on that, but it won't take that long because I can present the evidence to show you that what I'm saying is right. So yeah. So Christine said, "Greetings, everyone. Glad to have you, Christine." Texas Goddess says, "Most Christians are not devout. Many are religious. Being devout is way more than going to a building, sitting in pews while looking at the back of someone's head." I would push back just a little bit on that, Texas Goddess. That there are especially older African Americans who are extremely devout. Um, I think the younger generation, and I have the information and evidence because I do a lot of writing on this and research on this, the non-category, NONE, are where you will find more individuals who are not devout, but just simply attend church or occasionally will say a prayer or, whatever it is. Those individuals, and that is it is a fairly large group now, but it's comprised of mostly younger people. And within that non-group, African Americans are the fastest growing and the second largest segment of that. But remember, within that group comprises everyone from an individual who says, "I still believe in God. I just haven't been to church in 10 years," all the way to people who are open atheists and everything in between. But yes, my only pushback on that, Texas guys, is that then we still have many from the boomer generation and even Generation X who are extremely devout Christian, that everything they do is about Christianity. Every decision they make, everything is about being a Christian. And so, but again, as we get younger, we see that change happening. So certainly appreciate that. Let's see, where do we leave off at? Thank you, Texas Guys, for that comment. I'm so glad to have you here with us. LMA, Fits Up. Texas Goddess says LMA, that should be the name of the next number one bestseller. I agree. You're absolutely right. That is on point. Christine said, teach truth, justice, and correctness every day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christine. Um, Couple of last comments before we try to move on. But I love the comments. The comments are better than I just like the comments. I like the input from all of you. LMA said, "I've heard Christians say that they were grateful for slavery." Let me take a pause. There are they're not as I progress and as I get older in this space. there are not many things that upset me coming from Christians anymore, and I've kind of got over that. This is the one thing, though. This is the one thing, though, that sets me off. Let me finish reading it. LMA said, I've heard Christians say that they were grateful for slavery because through slavery their ancestors were introduced to Christianity. Let me let me stop there because I have to talk on this. I have to speak on this. Um, when I hear a person, African American, say that, I think it's the most ignorant, the most asinine, the most ass backwards thing that a black person can ever say. And now let me give you substantive context as to why. Uh, let me not just speak from emotion. Let me speak from facts. Here's the thing: if your God is everything that you say your God was, then why did it take uh, the unaliving or the dying, the lynching, the raping of 20 plus million enslaved Africans in order for us to be exposed to Christianity? So that in itself is absolutely wrong. Is absolutely a problem. Secondly, uh, you when that statement is made out of ignorance because you're assuming that whatever religion or spiritual practices that our ancestors did prior to that was somehow um, inferior to Christianity, and that is another misnomer. Understand, Africans were the first people on this planet. Our spiritual practices, what our ancestors practiced in Africa, came long before Christianity. As a matter of fact, Christianity, through many older religions, borrowed from African spirituality, or ATRs as we call them, African traditional religions. And so that is a very ignorant statement. And then finally, it is just ignorant um, and I just can't even think of a stronger word for any African Americans to minimize slavery in a way to say that they're happy about it. There is nothing that occurred through the enslavement of our people that we should be excited or happy about. Even our existence, and I know this is going to be controversial for a whole lot of people, even our personal existence. Um, I am never going to make the assumption that as a black person in this country, I am better off than what I would have been if I lived on the continent of Africa. I am never going to make that assumption. I am never going to say that. Never. We've been blinded, and there's been a bunch of propaganda that's been indoctrinated in all of us from the time that we were extremely small and young, that said a bunch of negative and bad things about Africa and the countries in Africa and the continent as a whole. Uh, what we see in some areas of Africa now is a byproduct of what European countries did, the resources that they stole, and the centuries of oppression that they uh, put upon the continent of Africa. And then there are many, many, many parts of Africa um, that are doing extremely well, that are economically viable, that in many cases are in better conditions than many cities here in the US. And so I'm never going to say that I am better off here, being born here, than I would have been born in Africa prior to the slave trade and prior to European countries dividing up the country and taking all of the resources from that. And so I just wanted to put that out there. And I know for some people that may be controversial, and I might get some pushback, and that's wonderful. That's fine. I stand on everything that I've ever said. I've never backed down from anything that I've ever said, and I won't. Um, Texas Goddess said, I would love to come to the show and explain. Yes, there are devout people. Absolutely, Texas Goddess. We got to have you on here. No problem whatsoever. Um, Fox, what's going on? I don't want to mess up the first one. The first name, Kamisi. If I'm butchering it, I certainly apologize. Um, Kamisi Fox says, "Hey, bruh, I just wanted to say thank you for standing in the pocket and exposing religion. We need more black men to do that. Until we deliver the death blow to religion, we will not find our true selves." Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think I found my new best friend. No, I again, this is we've been doing this for a while, and I certainly appreciate that sentiment and support. There are a lot of others that's in this space, but we have to find them. They're out there. If you go to TikTok, you'd be surprised the number of African Americans who are in this space, who are standing up to religion, who are saying, no, we're not going to continue to operate like that. Unfortunately, there is still a vast majority of us who's caught up, still caught up in this, and refuse to ask the questions. And I don't ask people to just blindly leave religion or leave their faith or whatever. What I do ask them is to think objectively, think critically, and don't be afraid to ask the questions. And if it fits you, well, that's fine. Stay in it. Do whatever you can from the inside to make it better for all of us. But if it doesn't fit you, don't be afraid to leave it. Don't be afraid to seek out something else and look and search for a community of us, because we are here. We are certainly here. Seek out and search for this community and become part of this community, because we are here to support you as well. Certainly. So I certainly appreciate those kind words. Thank you so much. Christine said pure insanity. Absolutely. I might. I can't do a show on that, Christine, because I'll get too emotional and I'll probably start cussing. Because that that really burns me when I hear someone say that. S2S, you are free to use Black Christian Syndrome for the new book title. Just give me a cut. I will. I will. I will. As a matter of fact, um, I'm gonna have to write that. I'm gonna have to write about that in some smaller articles or whatever. But yeah, you absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Texas is saying hi to Christine. So yeah, Christine, we glad to have. Well, I'm glad to have both of you. You and Texas guys. I think you guys have been gone for a while, but glad to have you back. But where did I where did I stop? Well, we got left off a little bit. Oh, so we have a few minutes left. Another topic of this, why Black Christianity is detrimental to our progress, is it is anti-science. I'm in the middle of a conversation or debate right now with a really good friend of mine, one of my fraternity brothers who I pledge, who I love dearly, who incidentally almost lost his life, went through a really, really traumatic couple of strokes and some other stuff, and really did not think that he was going to make it. He is extremely devout. He is a social media pastor. I think he has a channel. But he and I constantly have these discussions. And so he is very much he believes in creation, of course, and I've told him, and this is my standard line, is that scientists have said that Big Bang, natural selection, and evolution are the most plausible explanations for our existence, and that's where I stand. There is no evidence, no objective, no scientific evidence for creation or the creation story. He and others like him, they can't present evidence to prove creation. So what they do is that they try to discredit the science. Ironically, they try to use science to discredit science. And then what they said, by doing this somehow proves their theory of God. Well, first of all, they can't um, discredit the science, because the science, first of all, is not saying anything definitively. What they're saying is that as of today, based on the evidence that we have, this is the most plausible theory or explanation for our existence. And as we get more evidence or more information, that will change, and that has happened through the history of science. That's number one. Number two, and I tell them this all the time, even if you're able to knock holes in science or disprove to an extent some of the things in science, that is not evidence of a God, b, your God, and C, your God being responsible for our existence. And so, what I need for you to do, and this is me speaking to them in our dialogue and our debate, what I need for you to do is to present testable, empirical, objective evidence that points directly to the existence of a God or a deity and the existence of your particular God or deity and the uh, facts supporting that your God or your deity is responsible for our existence. And clearly, I've never received that information. But these individuals become anti-science. They go against the science. And I say, you, so they say, well, you believe in man or whatever. No, I'm believing the evidence that's presented. You're believing a story, a mythology that also talks about talking snakes, flying donkeys, people being raised from the dead, people surviving 3 days inside of a well, people surviving in the middle of a fire, all kind of things. And yet, I'm the one that's insane for believing the science. And so it is ignorant. Also, this does not hold water on a world stage, right? Big Bang, evolution, and natural selection is universally accepted throughout the world as science. They are universally accepted as the explanation for our existence. So when a African American or any person for that matter goes out into the world, the scientific world, and they're espousing their belief in creation and the God theory, they sound uneducated and ignorant because that is not where the rest of the world is. The vast majority, even for those countries outside of, say, the countries in the Middle East, even countries that tend to be a little bit more religious, will still say that we believe in the science. And now, they might try to find a way to make the science and creation line up, but that's a whole other story. And so for our people, we need to have them to understand that, listen, it is all right to have a religious belief, right? And I'm being sincere when I say that, as long as it's personal. But don't sound ignorant in public when people talk about our existence and you throw in creation. It is a reason why there is not a science museum throughout the world that has anything in it about creation. Every science museum throughout the world talks about Big Bang, evolution, and natural selection. Because again, it is the universally accepted explanation for our existence. And as things change, it will change as well. But that is not evidence, that is not proof of an existence of a supernatural deity or God. So that's one of the other issues. Um, and so we have what, another couple of minutes. Christine said, make it make sense. I think I'm gonna stop here. We'll pick some up. We'll pick this up at a later date, or maybe touch on this. I have some other things that I wanted to talk about, but it was a great conversation. Again, the input from you all makes this a much easier conversation, a better conversation, and I'm just appreciative of the input that you all provide. And so, in the last minute or so, just sort of go back over a couple of things. Again. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the like button. Invite your friends and your enemies. Also, if you haven't picked up my book, this is my first book in this space, From Saved to Sane. Can you see that? From Saved to Sane. Why my journey away from Christianity and why Christianity has been detrimental to the African American community. You can get this on Amazon, or you can hit me up in the comments on this channel. If you want a signed copy, I'll send you my Cash App information, 19.99, and you can have a signed copy. I get your address and we'll mail it to you. I'm working on my next book, which is a collection of all of my graduate work, concluding with my graduate thesis at the very end. But there would be other writings that I've done. Hopefully, that book will be out by the end of the year. Texas Goddess said, "Will it please have a link ready for us to jump on if that's what you want for your show?" Oh, um, is this about me speaking in April? Are you referring to that, Texas Goddess? If so, then yeah, I would absolutely have a link, and we'll have all the information. I mentioned earlier, I don't know if some of you may have not been on yet, but I am doing a class in April with the American Humanist Association. The class is going to be on Christian nationalism, its relationship to evangelicalism, and turn our democracy into a dictatorship, and how we in the secular community, can be an antidote to that, can stop that. It is a 3-part class. It's going to begin on a Wednesday. Um, and that's going to be $25 per session, so $75 for the total class. Texas said no to come on live with you. Oh, yeah. Texas, I need to send out a link. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it. I can just do a link live, or I can send it to you personally on your email or Facebook or whatever. That's how I used to do it for Taisha. I would just set this up, and then I would send her the link personally through her Facebook or whatever. So let's talk about this, Texas guys. We'll definitely get you on. We will do that. But yeah, so I think that's it. Again, thank all of you. I appreciate the support. The channel is still growing. I wanted to grow more, but I will be here. I'm not going anywhere. This is actually what I do now on a full-time basis. This is part of what I do now on a full-time basis, but being in this space is what I do now on a full-time basis. Enjoying it, loving it. You can send me topics that you would like for us to discuss and talk about. And so we will do that as well. But I thank all of you. I thank you for your support. Thank you for your information and your input. I would talk with you guys in a couple of weeks. Texas Goddess, Christine, LMA, certainly appreciate that. What is that? Kamisi Fox. Again, I apologize if I'm butchering that. Who else was on here today? And we Henry, certainly appreciate having you on here. It's been a while. Lata, Saran Lata, glad to have you. If this is your first time, we certainly appreciate it. Please join us again. Come back every 2 weeks. We do this every other week. Lish, glad to have you. Again, we do this every other week, so join us in 2 weeks when we will do that. So I'll see you again. What's the date? Today is the 25th, so we'll see you sometime in March. Let's see, what's that? The 5th, and then the 12th. The 12th, I think around the 12th. Whatever the second, looks like that'll be the second Tuesday in March. We'll see you then. Thank you so much. Stay safe.